Recording started.
Hey, I want to welcome everybody to this week's Matrix discussion group call for tactical sovereignty. Uh, like I always say, this wonderful Sunday, the first day of the week, not the seventh, not the Sabbath. Although once in a while the Sabbath might fall on it, depending on what calendar you use. Anyway, we're just having a chit chat here, waiting for a guest to arrive. And we're talking about, the collective conscience and how much power that we actually have together when we put our minds together. We're discussing Palma, discussing the powers that, some people are afraid of, whether it be CERN or HARP, um, directed energy, that kind of thing. And I stated that, from my viewpoint on it, is that man individually isn't as powerful as a lot of people think he is, as far as different devices or things that may be manufactured or attempted to use in order to influence things. We do know that if we go back to wars in the past, that there were different things done, like seeding the clouds and stuff like that. So I'm not saying that man has no power. I'm just saying man doesn't have the power that we're led to believe, especially when it comes to, I don't want to use a trigger word, but worldwide weather control or change, I guess is one way of saying it. And I think the Earth is way more powerful than we are. However, together, collectively, we can do things regarding that. Sid, did you want to discuss that a little bit further?
Sure, yes. So, as we stated, we know that one of the things that I think that's a loss. We talked about it, the man-made devices and all of those things that they put out there. The one thing I could say is I do believe in they're seeding to cause the weather. I do believe that they have these particular mechanisms, but they're only as powerful as they have been, or they have a limit to their power. I think ourselves and our connection to the earth being the most powerful. We talk about the sun, we talk about the moon. It's a lot of, to me, I feel like it's just a lost art that was there to be able to control and manifest things that we have the ability to do. And I think the biggest problem that we have is fear. If you inject fear, you forget where you are. So if we're fearful, we forget that we have the power. We give our power up. Sort of like signing the contract. It's the same thing. When you forget who you are and you subject yourself to fear, you lose your power.
Well, I would say that fear is a form of surrender, wouldn't you?
Yes, absolutely.
Kind of surrender to your fears. And if you go in and study, for instance, the different tactics that are used to take over countries or things like that, a lot of people think of like war. For instance, what's going on currently in the past 20 years in the Middle East, going in with planes and bombing and soldiers and doing that kind of thing. People don't realize that that isn't the first step. That is a last ditch effort. There's two or three other plans that are implemented ahead of time. And if those don't work, then the next things that come along are assassinations and wars. But those first two or three forms that they use are the ones that are used even more than the physical wars we see. And fear is one of the tools in that toolbox that they use, because what that does is it destabilizes a people. And if people are destabilized by fear, then they're much more easy to manipulate. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it tells us in the scriptures that if a man has fear in his heart, there's no room for love.
Absolutely.
So we have to really realize that if we're not loving our brother, then we're living in fear, one or the other.
Well, I've learned the acronym. I'm sorry, Brian.
Go
I
ahead.
learned the acronym for fear is false existence appearing real. So, you know, if you believe in it in your heart, like you said, if you believe it in your heart, then it goes back to the manifesting. Fear is a big thing. A lot of things that we see on the news, a lot of things that we see on TV, it was projected to us over and over and over and over again. The one question that nobody asks is it real? What's real? What's real? We've heard 1,000 different things. At least I'm speaking for myself. I've heard 1,000 different things. I look at 1,000 different videos. I see 1,000 different things, and I'm saying to myself all the time, as I look, initially I was enamored by them. I was sucked in, and then eventually I still took a step back and said, "What's real? What is absolutely real?" And only reality is what I make it.
Along with those tactics that I mentioned, you're discussing reality reminded me of one of the other things they have in their toolbox. And this was really exhibited the most during the Reagan administration. And people are seeing this more and more even today. They are really becoming very obvious with the things they're doing, for people that pay attention. But in the 80s, during the Reagan administration, one of the tools they used was people's perception and perception reality. And if they could form people's perception to think they were seeing certain things, then that would become their reality. And that's even being used a whole lot today. And so many people, you're talking about fear and love. So many people think that the opposite of love is hatred, which is not correct. The opposite of love is fear. And so, like you said very well right there, Keith, if a man, has fear in his heart, there's no room for love. And if we don't love one another, then we're not fulfilling the greatest commandment, are we?
That's absolutely true. But the one thing I could say is in learning about the Kabbalion, they're one and the same on opposite ends of the same pole. So even if you do have hate, you can actually mute that out if you know how to do that. So it's not too late for anyone to change their thoughts. Like everything that we're going through right now, it's not too late. It takes people to have an understanding and know that everything outside of them is not real. And you start within. You have to ask those questions. What's real to you? What's real to you? And you have to look in that mirror every day and say, what's real to me? And once you start doing that more and more, you free yourself from a lot of the mental chains that have been given to you, that you put on yourself, not given to you, but you put on yourself through you accepting what's been given to you from external sources. And
absolutely,
that brings you closer to the source, the real source itself, once you start releasing everything outside of yourself.
And taking advantage and using these things that have kind of been a lost art is pretty much what you were saying. Now, this has been, for people that know me, this has been part of me and what I do. I know my parents used to tell me when I was young, they're like, "Oh, you always got to walk the line, don't you?" You've got to walk right up next to the line. You got to see how far you can push things. And I've been that way with everything, not just with, say, the law or the crazy remedy schmucks that are out there that are talking the same garbage that people have been talking about since the 70s that do nothing and go nowhere. But I've been pushing that as well in the aspect of considering that, Yeshua said the things that I have done, you will do, and you will do greater. And I stop and think, well, what things are people doing that's at least as great, if not greater? And I don't see anything. You know what I mean? And so that I've tried to start looking at things, talking about perspective, changing my perspective as to what's really happening. And like you said, what is really real? It, we're talking prior to the recording, about the collective. And I really think, whatever, weapons man may make to try influence different things, I believe that the collective, I believe our consciousness can overpower any of those things, or at least greatly thwart them. And I was talking about R. Wayne Steiger. People can find R. Wayne Steiger on YouTube. He was working a lot in tech and things like that prior to retirement. And he now has a show that he does every day on YouTube. And here about a year ago, he was talking to the group of us, and he was talking about where he's at in Colorado, and that they had been, in a drought. And he said, we should have the power to be able to control that. And he said, how about if we all just collectively start, putting our intent into it raining in Colorado? And I believe he wanted everybody to do it like at a certain time every day for like a week and see what happened. And from my memory, this was about a year ago. From my memory, about 20 minutes or so after he got done with that episode, he was in his living room and he heard the lightning crack outside. And it started to rain. And it did. It rained for a few days. And I mean, it's just interesting when you see the collective come together and we put our intent into something. And right now we see a collective of fear being used. And it's causing a lot of people's lives to drastically change. And when you look at the collective, here's a good way to really observe it today, as far as boots on the ground experience. You look at small towns and how small towns right now are dealing with this boogeyman, I'll call it. All right. And small towns are pretty calm. Things are pretty laid back. It's not really that big a deal. But when you get into the bigger cities, the bigger the population is, the more influence that you see, the more you see them ratcheting down on things. And this is part of the collective, is because there's more people there and more people together in one place dwelling on this whole fear issue and propagating the problem and causing it to be able to gain a little bit of headway. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that, but I think it's been very evident. And so I've tried to push things on all different levels. If we're talking about weather, using different products and like learning how to make orgonite and things like that. Some of the tech that came from Wilhelm Reich. He was even using it, and people make what's called like cloud busters. Okay. And those can be used for or against a cloud type of situation. I'll just leave it at that. And also, you're talking about the collective, you're talking about spiritual aspects and spirituality. And even our personal spirituality, if we really learn how to tap into it, you can tap into the source, if you want to call it that, or the operating program, if you want to put it that way. I think one thing I find really interesting, if people want to check out, would be the Diehold Foundation. And the information that is coming out from the Daiwa Foundation, I find very intriguing, and it's just not a few people on a lower level that find it interesting, but there's also government agencies that are going and recording this information that's being brought out there too. They're very interested in it because, you know, as far as the weather goes in cycles. But we know during the year, weather goes in cycles. You know, your winter time, your spring, your summer, your fall. Well, over long spans of time, it goes in cycles too. And you're going to go from periods of drought to periods of abundance. If you go and you can take a map, for instance, of the timeline in Asia over a past few thousand years and map out when different dynasties rose and different dynasties fell. And then you can place also a map over that, an overlay of these periods of drought and these periods of abundance. And you'll notice that they correlate with these dynasties. When people were going through times of drought, they thought the gods are mad at them and the gods must be mad at their leaders. So they would oust one of the dynasties, the dynasty would step in, and of course, then, you know, the earth was falling into its regular cycle, and things would get good again. And then that dynasty, those families would be in rulership until the next period of drought came along. And it's interesting how you can see people's reaction as far as the leaders for their country just based on weather alone. You know, something basic like that. So, but now today we're being told that this is occurring due to the fault of man, and that we caused it, and that we can change it. I believe, yeah, we probably can change it, but it's not going to be by deciding whether you're drinking out of the tap or if you're drinking out of plastic bottles. That's not what's going to make the change. What will make a change will be the collective. The collective can come together and focus on a time of abundance again. And that has been proven to work, and it could work again. But people just have to step out of the fear situation. Keith, I'll let you pick it up. I'm going to check the board and see if our potential guest arrived.
You
No,
actually
she's not here yet.
you actually brought up a good point about dynasties, and I think it's a tie between dynasties and also constellations. So we talk about the age of Aquarius, right? I think what we're going through right now is a correlation of that. I believe that we're going into a new age, but the struggle comes into play of who's going to control this age that's coming in, this age of information, this age of, like you've said on numerous occasions, the veil has been lifted, and so there's a lot of things that's out there that used to be hidden that's no longer hidden. Like one of the things that I learned from you and started looking at is PMAs. PMAs has been around since the dawn of time, and nobody knew what it was. Now it's starting to be a big thing. So I've heard it. Once I heard it from you, I think I've heard at least 5 or 6 people after that mention private membership associations. And I'm like, I haven't heard it in 53 years of my life, and all of a sudden now I'm starting to hear people talk about it everywhere. So it appears that shift is happening, and somebody's trying to grab a hold of this new age that's coming in the energy that's coming in along with that. But with that being said, back to your point, still, if people know how to control the energies and take in as a collective, they can usher in that age as well to whatever it is that collectively we want to have happen, and not have the whoever the powers that be that want to try to grab a hold of this energy for themselves. We can actually thwart that off if we wanted to. So,
A lot of people are going to hear things like this, and they're automatically, if they're, say, like Christians or Bible thumpers or whatever, they're going to be thinking, oh, this is anti-godly, this is antichrist stuff, control of things. People need to, I think, open their horizons a little bit, because evidently so far the past, I don't know, 230 years America's been in existence. Whatever horizons they've been on, haven't been heading in the right direction. But there are ministers out there that discuss these things. I'd recommend the late Chuck Misler. Check him out. I would recommend Derek Prince. These are excellent, excellent ministers. And they will very often sound like maybe that small time, small home minister that you had growing up. But they also get into topics that the churches don't teach today. And we need to realize that what happened from the onset is that different, I want to say children of God, put it that way, different angels were put over certain regions of the world. And it's kind of gone to a lot of their heads. And in fact, if you go, I believe in Psalm 82, the Creator is standing there in the midst of these rulers, in the midst of these gods. It says these other gods, telling them that they're going to die like men because of their arrogance, basically. And so, and their desire has been to control mankind, control the minds of men. And what do they use? They use other men to do it with. If these other men are really human, who knows? But why are they trying so hard? Why do they need to try so hard? They have to try so hard because collectively we can control them. They're actually supposed to bow to us. And once people wrap their mind around that, that's, I believe, when real change is going to be seen for the positive. Until then, men are just going to easily be continually led along by a leash. Is that you in the background there, Haya?
Yes. So it sounds like you guys are talking about spiritual warfare and the manifestation of things that we can see with our eyes, speaking about chemtrails, and talking about, well, I think the whole issue is for us to look at ourselves. Like, I think Keith, is that who that was? I know it's not Hotep Pero. It's not. It's a different Keith, right? But he was talking about analyzing the heart, looking at your heart. I really do think it does have a lot to do with, if my people will humble themselves and pray and seek my face, that's to the Creator, I will hear your prayers and I will heal your land. Because all morning long, all day long, I have been videotaping the physical manifestations of mankind following orders and spraying our skies. And it makes me so upset because there's not a whole lot I can do about it. I've already tried to contact the Department of Defense. I've tried. These weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. It's belief systems. And they are happening. They are doing it because it's under their UN and their orders to do geoengineering because the sun is going to burn the earth. That's the godless people saying that. And it's their stronghold, their way of thinking. And ours is different, but I do think it's possible that we could accomplish more if we did get together and pray and, seek the Creator's face and say, how can we bring down these strongholds, these ways of thinking in these people? Because I just had a customer that I was texting and showing him the chemtrails, and he's like, oh no, those are contrails. I go, no, that's what the sheeple are told, and the sheeple believe that. Here, go look at geoengineeringwatch.org. Although that guy is a glober and, he's got the globe on there. I know that landmass is dirt and landmass. And part of that UN and the ideology of heliocentricity and the globe spinning out of control because there is no creator and it's chasing the sun, BS, it's a bunch of BS is what it is. And that you look at Genesis 1 verse 9, and it talks about the difference between earth being land and the water being water and sky being sky. And this is an issue of strongholds and ideologies. It really truly is. Because if you believe this, then you're going to go to that, and then you're going to go step up here, and then you're going to try to do something about it. And then you got the Bill Gates guy trying to fund everything to stop the sun from burning because there's no God, It's just craziness. It's craziness. So I do think that we do need to realize what is in our head, how did it get in there, what TV did we watch, and how did we get indoctrinated. And once we start realizing that we're not in control, but there is one who is in control, and he is allowing the wheat and the tares to grow together. He is allowing that. I think that's to get our faith strengthened and for us to come together and seek his face. But we do have to analyze ourselves. We really do. Like, how did that get in my head that we landed on the moon?
What's the
It
first
just goes from one life.
what's the first instruction on that list, on that verse that you mentioned there?
If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves.
There you go.
Yeah, you have to realize I don't know everything. I don't know everything.
That's step one. We have to humble ourselves.
I do. I just don't know it yet.
What does that look like?
What?
What humbling yourself looks like is you not feeling like or presenting this attitude of I'm the one in charge, I'm the one in power. And you have to realize that the creator, the operating system source, whatever you want to call it, that's the one that is really the one that's supposed to be in power.
Yeah.
You just have to yield. You have to yield yourself.
Yeah, I humble myself by doing things like going to the Salvation Army for lunch. I'm a guy that literally I gave everything up. I have no job, I have no bank accounts, I have nothing. And I do everything in my life by barter and trade. So my barter and trade oftentimes,
You're one of the smart ones.
Yeah, I end up often bartering my trades by charity work. You know what I mean? It's all non-taxable.
Yeah, and so that's step one, really, is in humbling ourselves. And part of humbling ourselves is being of service, to your fellow man, instead of trying to be serviced by your fellow man. I think too many of us have this attitude of what can you do for me, or what can I get out of it? Well, that shouldn't be the attitude. The attitude should be, what can I contribute? How can I help?
But Brian, let me ask you this question, because I'm that way. How do you protect yourself from? Because I give a lot, and I've given a lot, and sometimes when you give a lot, it's taken for granted, if you want to say that, and you have people who come for more and more and more. You know what I mean? So I've done a lot for a lot of people, family members, and at some point you have to cut them off. But and I completely understand. I try to give to it. Sometimes I spread myself so thin that it wears on me mentally, right? So how do you protect yourself from that?
There's two things that need to be thought about regarding that. The first thing I would say is we have to make sure we put a limitation on how much we'll give, because takers never put a limitation on how much they're going to take, and they will bleed you dry. You know what I mean? So that's one aspect. The second aspect, and I don't really talk about this much, I do with family, but when it comes to our personal relationships, we have to decide what tax rate we're going to be on, what tax percentage we are willing to sacrifice, because many of the relationships around us, in fact, most all relationships, are all going to come with a tax. There's going to be a cost involved. And along with costs also comes profits involved. And so it can be looked at in two different ways. But, you know, how much, what tax rate we're going to be on, this also goes into the how much are you going to give. You've got to put a limitation on how much you're going to give. But there's also a flip side to taxes. And that would be looked at as far as like boundaries go, because we would say that there's certain people we won't talk to. Well, you know what? You don't have to hang out with them, but don't put yourself a limitation on whether or not you will be open to receive what other people have to say or be able to talk to other people, because you're going to be paying a tax there. And the tax that you're going to be paying is the tax of positive information, positive knowledge, positive intelligence that you could possibly be getting from them. But if you set this boundary for whatever arbitrary reason that you don't talk to certain types of people or things like that, or I'll put it in a simple form, a lot of people can identify with. People will say, oh, don't talk to police officers. Never talk to a police officer. It doesn't matter if they're off duty or on duty. You don't talk to police officers. And okay, fine. If that is a stance you want to take, okay. But you're going to be paying a tax for that. And one of the taxes that you're going to be paying on that is a wealth of information that you possibly are giving up by not developing a relationship with, say, a police officer or any other type of law enforcement officer, whether it's for the county or the state. That would be a good example, maybe, to look at for that. Go ahead.
I agree with you wholly. You kind of took me off guard there when you said a tax, but I agree with you, because the tax is, like you said, a possible education somewhere. See, that's the primary element for me when I do anything for anybody. Is I'm not going to give it freely in that sense. It's the product or the service or the good or whatever. I'm going to exchange that freely. That's free. I'm not going to charge you for it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some information along with it to educate you. It's like if somebody needs a bag of potatoes, okay, there's a relationship that's already developing if they want to come ask me for a bag of potatoes. Now that relationship starts out with them asking for a bag of potatoes. I have to return quid pro quo, what for? I can't just give them any kind of potatoes. I can say, yeah, I can give you potatoes and give them a bag of potatoes, and that's done. But for me, the primary element is an education. So I ask them in return, what kind of potatoes or what for, something like that. So I have a more definitive reasoning or intent. And then it comes down to an issue of, say they ran short on grocery money and they're really needing some food, and they got a couple kids. I'm not only going to give them the potatoes for the now time, but I'm going to help them with an education on how to cook them and make them last, or how to plant them and grow them so they have more later on. And that's the tax you were talking about. That's the tax I'm going to pay in giving something away. But that's biblical again, because we're supposed to go forth with our talents. Go forth with 5 talents, come back with 10. Go forth with 3 talents, come back with 6. If we take our only talent or our talents of any amount and bury them and only come to our Father with the same that which he gave us, we did not prosper as he instructed us. That's the foundation of prospering, is spreading what we know by knowledge. The very verse that goes in correlation with this is Hosea 4, verse 6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So if we're going to build each other up, we use knowledge to do so. If we find someone in need and they come ask us for help, our best help is the knowledge of what they need. So we can give them what they need, the product or service, like I said, with the knowledge of how it's used. So yeah, great point. Great point.
Absolutely. And, anybody that knows me personally would know that I'm not one of these people that I'm just constantly running my mouth. We know these type of people we encounter in life that it's like, oh my God, could you shut up for a minute? But there's so many people, especially like say within, let's say the truth movement, for instance. Okay. I don't like putting labels on things, but people will comprehend what I'm referring to when I say the truth movement. But there's some people within this that they might have 5 or 10 mantras. They may have 5 or 10 issues that's all they talk about over and over and over again. Now they've not gone in and explored deeply any of those on a single level as far as how you take care of those problems or those things that you see as an issue.
Oh yeah.
But myself, I try, even when I am talking to somebody, regardless of what information may be available regarding the topic, you don't want to, and at least this is my attitude as far as guarding what I pay in taxes in relationships, is you don't want to give someone more information than they absolutely need. I think people's mouth is what gets them in the most trouble. Your mouth is your worst witness. You yourself are your own worst witness in many situations, so you have to be careful with that. And since we brought up the situation like with police, for instance, this would be a good segue to get into what we're going to talk about this evening. Because the guest we were going to have on, I guess we'll have to reschedule her, but she sent me, I'm going to see if I can show this to you guys, an affidavit written by a police officer. And let me just kick on a different light here. Let me take a look and see how this is turning out. Okay, this should be okay. And this is an affidavit written by a police officer in regards to a stop he had. This has been sanitized, so I don't think there's any pertinent information on here. I'll just give you a quick look at it. If anybody, see if it shows up. Will it show up? Doesn't look like it wants to. But I could probably show like screenshots to people of it. That's really weird that it won't show up for us. Okay. Well, maybe if I hold it down. Might be a little bit better. Yeah, you're still not going to be able to read it. Anyway, this was a affidavit written by an officer. He had performed a traffic stop, and he wrote an affidavit regarding that stop to the court. And I believe part of this was a reply to things that she had submitted, or he, whichever the case had been. And he's talking about the relationship that people have. And I would recommend, if people want to read it, you can find it in your own states, but a place that you can definitely go and pull it up at is if you put in CVC, it's Charlie Victor Charlie 17459. That's CVC 17459. And that's what he is getting into in this affidavit. And I'll read you part of a paragraph of it where he's discussing this. He said the state also created a roadway system for those that use vehicles to ensure the safety of all people using the roadway of the state. It created a driver's license program requiring all users on the roadway to have minimum certifications in order to use a vehicle on the roadway that the state created. when a person, and this is where he's getting into it, when a person applies for a license, he is granted the privilege to operate a vehicle in the state. They become the registered agent. They're saying when they apply for the license, they become the registered agent and are responsible for the actions of their operations of their vehicle. And the legal registered agent or representative, and he included principal, which I don't agree with, are receiving and accepting summons and legal process related to their operations of their vehicle on the public roadway. Now, if you go into what I had listed from the state of California, which was 1745-9 in the California Vehicle Code, they explain it there as well, is that when you apply for the driver's license, you are becoming the registered agent. What does the registered agent do? What's the registered agent for? The registered agent is for service of process, notice, and demand. So, for instance, a summons, okay? If you're getting a summons for court in the mail, you are receiving a service of process. And at the same time, becoming that registered agent, we have to realize what it is, you know, a company can't necessarily deal with a man, but who does deal with the men? Other agents in that company. So who are they dealing with? They're obviously dealing with other agents as well. One of the things that I've said to people is that, you know, when you're standing in court, even maybe prior to comprehending how the whole system really works, but you're standing there, there's the prosecutor, there is the clerk there, or stenographer, there's the judge. Well, they are all serving in a capacity of being a representative or being an agent for something. The judge is the agent for the state in the court, so is the clerk. The prosecutor is serving as an agent for, in the capacity of prosecutor for the state and for the court. If you have defense counsel, that defense attorney is serving as an agent representing your legal person. So why in the world, if everybody else in that room is serving in a representative capacity, what makes you think that you're the odd man out, that you are not serving in a representative capacity as well?
And what makes you think, if that's the logic and reason, that you have to hire another agent?
Exactly.
If you're the representative agent already stated, then why aren't they recognizing that? See, it's all inconsistencies.
Well, no, to me, it's very consistent, and I'll tell you why. They would rather have one of their agents that works for them representing the legal entity that they created,
correct,
than have you represent it. Because
and
they want everything to go their way.
Correct. And that's part of the problem, because the basis of that legal representative agent on a driver's license is the motor vehicle operator's lease agreement. You're supposed to write a statement of intent yourself and sign it in wet ink that you intend to use that automobile for the performance of functions of public office, at least 50% of its use. If you haven't done that, then it's not valid. Also notice that if you're performing the functions of public office, then you must first have an oath of office to do so. This is a requirement for all driver's licenses. If you don't have an oath of office, you don't qualify for a driver's license.
And that was part of the purpose. If people listen to episode 252 here several weeks ago, I laid out the 1, 2, 3 steps of what I did. And that was really a big part of the essence being the reason why the road I took was resigning as agent. I wasn't going to represent their entity. Now, as well as that affidavit, I've collected all these things and put them into one book. I have what is also called the driver's license compact. And one of the things I try to explain to people, they need to realize, and this is what we need to teach our offspring, is that whenever your signature is required for something, the only reason, and I'll say this again, the only reason why a signature would be required is because there is a contract running in place in the background. All right. So whenever somebody demands a signature of you, I would demand full disclosure. I want to see the contract running behind this. I want to see the duties and obligations that are being agreed to. And in the driver's license compact, it starts right out really talking about duties and obligations. But the number one duty and obligation, now, because the driver's license compact, you become a party to it when you sign for the driver's license. But you also have to realize that anybody that is enforcing policy on the roadway, they are also, by conduct, and because they hold a driver's license probably, they are also a party to this compact. And the number one duty and responsibility in this compact is to promote safety. To promote safety. So if someone is, say, for instance, coming after you for something that has absolutely nothing to do with the promotion of safety, that's operating outside of the contract. Because number one, you weren't doing anything that harmed safety, and they're trying to enforce something that has nothing to do with safety. So that's stepping outside of the bounds of that contract. Now, there's 5 states that are not necessarily a party to the driver's license compact, but the states all do reciprocate each other regarding people driving from one state to another on a driver's license. So just through reciprocation alone, they're kind of making themselves a party to it. And at the same time, the third thing I think that would be good for people to read is a book by some say George Mercier. I think it's French. I think it's probably pronounced Mercier. It's Mercier. And he wrote a book called Invisible Contracts. And that's one of the things that had been brought to my attention from somebody retired, I'll just say retired from judicial office, put it that way, is that we have been involved and signed on to hundreds, maybe even thousands of invisible contracts without realizing it through our life. And a lot of people will want to, scream and claim, full disclosure. We weren't given full disclosure. People, though, unfortunately, it's not taught in schools, do not realize how law works and how things like full disclosure works. There's only a small handful of things where full disclosure is required before somebody signs. And one of them, an obvious one, would be when you agree to a mortgage and you sit down at the closing table. You're going to have a little over 70 pages of documents to sign. And that is the full disclosure for the mortgage. Most generally, full disclosure is not required to be given ahead of time. It's only required if you ask for it. If you ask for full disclosure and it's not provided to you, and you can show evidence of that, that will void a contract. Otherwise, when you sign, and it even states this in the Internal Revenue Code, that just by the mere use of money or even signing a check, you are essentially becoming a banker, and you are claiming to know the laws when it comes to money. And that's one of the aspects that a lot of people don't realize when it comes to contracts and these invisible contracts, is that we are contracting many times a day without even realizing it, because performance shows intent, and performance also shows contract. For instance, I've mentioned this, I believe, before. You hold the door open for somebody. This is part of a contract. You're making an offer. They walk through the door. They've accepted your offer. It's just little simple contracts like that we're doing all the time. But so many times, just through use or performance alone, contracts are being instated. Um, People listen to judges when judges will question people who want to argue jurisdiction. What do judges go to? They go to performance. They go to the people's actions. Oh, do you have a bank account? That's normally the last question they ask, and then they steamroll the people after that because they do have one. Just by their performance, by their use of a benefit provided by the state or allowed by the state, then they've contracted with them, and jurisdiction's been set up. By claiming a residence, just by living somewhere, that performance alone, and claiming it as a residence, that performance alone also shows an agreement to the contract and establishes jurisdiction. I think I got a message from our potential guest. Let me jump over and catch that really quick. If you want to
It looks like she's on. She's just muted.
Can we use the collective consciousness to get full disclosure on all contracts?
Define collective conscience.
Put everybody's mind on one thing and let it be that.
Like a prayer.
Okay, our guest is
Definitely.
here with us somewhere on the board, if I can find her. Everybody is unmuted. Jules, if you want to chime in.
Oh
There
gosh,
you are.
I just now figured out how to unmute. I don't know why. I've been trying to unmute. I'm so sorry. I think I'm an hour late, am I?
Yeah, that's all right.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I've had you guys. I apologize. I've had company for 2 days, and then we just kind of just trying to just relax. And I apologize. I'm sorry. Where are we? Have you covered the affidavit yet, by any chance?
Yeah, I just touched on
Okay.
the affidavit, and I touched on invisible contracts, and I was talking about different contracts and how they work. I also touched on the driver's license compact as well. I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at that or not, but I'm
I
just going to
did.
turn things over to you here.
Oh gosh, and I know you don't like to go much over an hour, right?
Yeah, that's okay. We,
Oh
we can
God.
do an extra half hour, whatever here. That's fine.
I'm known
Oh.
to go 28 hours.
Well, I am so disappointed in myself because I was so excited about being a part of this conversation because these things that you guys have been discussing is it's very exciting stuff, and it's good news. Um, and I feel very encouraged by it. So, Brian, did you post pictures where they can see the affidavit?
I tried to show it, but it really didn't show up very well. But I could show those in the group, like underneath the link for this.
Okay, so it's not like a Zoom call.
You can on TalkShoe, there is screen sharing, but from a telephone, you don't have that ability, and that's what I'm on.
What? Okay, Brian, tell me what would be best, because I also didn't catch it. It was I thought you guys were 2 hours behind me. You're actually 3. Tell me what you guys prefer. You guys prefer that I give y'all my insight and try to do it very quickly and not have time for questions? Like I can just try to cram stuff in it, or would y'all like to do a continuation to next week? It's up to you, Ryan. Because
I would
I
just,
really
I would say, just try and fill us in on what you can here. Now, you're on the computer, right?
well, I'm standing here in front of my computer. Yeah,
Oh,
I can is this something I can log into on
yeah.
my computer here and actually show you guys?
Yes.
Oh, all right. So what do I go to talk to?
Yeah. Do you have
I believe I
access?
have a
And
talk to and I quit using it a long time ago. Now I don't know how.
can you access the link I gave you from the computer?
Let me see. Let me go to my messages. Okay, guys, I apologize. Just give me a second here. You don't have a phone, do you? Let me copy that and send it to my computer. Okay, is anybody going to be able to, or do they have to be at the computer as well?
In order to see stuff, yeah, they'll have to be on the computer or accessing it like over a smartphone. If they just call in, they won't be able to see anything, but
Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay, and how about for the people who want it recorded? Will they be able to see this?
yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm trying to log in on my computer. And this is even better because my phone's dying and I can hook my headset up to my computer.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's. Okay, there it's asking for the name. Okay, I'm going to connect on my phone and connect on my computer. Okay.
All right. All right, are you with us, Jules? Hold on. Okay. Yes, you have access. Shoot.
Now.
All right. Okay, you with us, Jules?
Yeah, can you? Hello?
Yeah,
You heard me?
you're in and out.
In and out.
It hurts me.
Yeah, all the little technical fun.
Hmm.
I've got her unmuted and she's starred and she's pinned, which gives her full access. It's just a matter of her connection right now.
Well, if I could just maybe interject for a quick second while she's setting up. You had said something about the judge asking if one had a bank account. Well, if one has a trust bank account, I would say no, I don't have a bank account because it belongs to the trust.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true.
I
You
mean,
don't.
come on.
Well, and exactly. I have something that I use. My DBA has an account,
Mm-hmm.
but I am not my DBA.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Hmm. There you go.
Yeah, there's a clip from Judge Judy that I really wish I could find because it is so perfect. I've mentioned it before, but for the sake of this recording, it was a girl who was suing her ex-boyfriend because he was not helping pay off the vehicle. They had broke up, you know, and she felt like he wasn't doing his duty to help out, and so she was suing him. And Judge Judy asked him, she said, "Well, where do you work?" He said, "Well, I do a little this, a little that, whatever it takes, to make ends meet." And she said, "Okay." She said, "Well, where do you live? Where's your residence?" He said, "Well, sometimes I stay with my auntie. Sometimes I stay with friends over in the other county. I've got a lot of friends, a lot of relatives everywhere." Judge Judy's like, "Okay." She's like, um, I think she asked him about a bank account, and he said no. And finally, she turns to the girl and she says, "I'm sorry, I'm going to have to dismiss this case.
Amen.
He's not giving me the information that I need to have," which meant,
Name, address, and account number.
right. It's just like, I remember one time an officer asked me for ID, and I don't carry ID on me. You know what I mean? If my presence isn't proof of my existence, I don't know what is. You know what I mean? But anyway, they said, Well, how about your name, date of birth, and where you live? And I said to him, I says, wow, that's almost like the military. Name, rank, and serial number, huh? But that's exactly what it is. It's a military operation, guys. And yeah, and you give them those things, and what those things do is they're establishing jurisdiction. They're establishing territorial jurisdiction, personam jurisdiction, you know, control over the body, and control over because of your location where you dwell. So that's what you do, and that's why I said earlier, you are your own worst witness. You know, your mouth is what gets you in trouble, and that's what people don't realize. Well, I think, Jules, I don't know if you can hear me, but this might have to get delayed so that we can work out the kinks or whatever for possibly next week.
Yeah, can you mention what time your meeting is, if it's Eastern Standard Time, so that the different zones will know what time they can figure out where to be? Like, I think I was here at 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time.
Right. Yeah, which is correct for Pacific is 6 because it's 3 hours compared to Eastern. And so it starts up at 9 o'clock Eastern every Sunday. So if you are in Central, that's going to be another hour behind, which would be 8. And then Mountain would be 7. And Pacific would be 6. And I post the time on every advertisement. So we can see, or I did for a second there, I saw your screen, Jules. I'm afraid the audio is just not coming through very well. And your screen blinked off.
She doesn't have a good signal on her end.
All right. Okay. Jules, we will work on this for a time in the near future. I think tonight was a worthy conversation anyway. Covered a lot of things that you don't necessarily hear talked about too much anymore. And I guess I'll just close out telling everybody what I tell people every week. You want to start learning, the place you have to start at is learning who you really are, where you're really at, and where you're really from, because those are the things we get deceived on. Also, if people didn't catch it, Rice TV X on YouTube put up an interview I did this afternoon. People can go take a look at that. That's posted to Facebook and to the group as well. And it's also on my YouTube channel. It was downloaded there, so it should be accessible. And if you don't see it pop up, look for a playlist that has Tactical Sovereignty's information on it, and it's within that playlist as well. So that's another option.
Yeah, looks like she's got a very weak signal. Can we hear you? No, not strong enough. Sorry, girl.
No audio. We'll shoot for next week or week after. It's no problem. And we'll just get the signal thing ironed out. It's no big deal. I've had my struggles with it too, and had to find ways of connecting to a different tower. And it's been really good since then. So I've been able to start throwing these up on YouTube.
Yeah, maybe a cheap boost antenna or something.
Yeah. All right. So I said goodnight. Haya, you want to say goodnight? I know you're there. Keith, you can say your nighty nights too.
Yes, as always, I appreciate everybody. I hope everybody had a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. If it weren't for you guys, I wouldn't be here. So God bless and have a great night.
Absolutely. And if people want to see the documents I mentioned this evening, or maybe get links for them or something like that, just contact me. I'll try to throw them together on one link. That way it can be handed out fairly easy to everybody. So until next Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, everybody have a wonderful week.
Yes, fucking internet connection.